The day the Taliban took over started with a call from my friend in Germany. He told me to get to the airport because there was potentially going to be a German embassy evacuation plane leaving that day. He put my name on their evacuation list because I had worked for German media and I had been in the process of applying for a visa for the past year. I didn't have time to think. It felt like a lifeline for me as a progressive, outspoken journalist with tattoos, basically the antithesis of what the Taliban stands for. I took my laptop and phone and nothing else. I felt scared the minute I left my home. I had never felt so much pressure. When I reached the airport, the initial checkpoint was eerie. The police had left and the military was almost all gone. There was only private airport security checking bags. I didn't have a visa, so I was scared of being turned away, but I couldn't turn back. When I reached the international terminal, I was shocked at what I saw, and I started to feel hopeless. There were thousands of people, women and men, with their crying babies, struggling over what to do. They were fearful that the Taliban were coming. All these people, including foreigners, went to the airport, not knowing what would happen. The people all around me were panicking as they realized there might not be a plane for them. Even if they had tickets, there was uncertainty around whether their flight would take off. They were frightened, so people started to damage the airport, windows and ticket booths. And from there, the situation just continued to get worse. I hid in a corner, even though I was also panicking. Looking out the window, I watched the whole scene unravel around an aircraft trying to leave for Turkey. People were streaming into the plane and even hanging from the stairs. The aircraft was over capacity, and people were being pushed off the stairs so the plane could take off. They were screaming so loud that we could hear them from inside the airport. "We want to go, or we will die," some shouted. I just watched in horror as I waited, pondering my fate. At around 8:30 or 9 in the evening, someone shouted that the Taliban were inside the airport. People started screaming and running outside onto the tarmac. The airport was in utter chaos, with nobody to control the situation. I heard firing outside the airport door. I kept thinking that the Taliban had arrived. Everyone around me was scared and praying for the best. Nobody knew what to do. I called my friend in Germany again, and he said that the Germans would not start evacuations until the next day. This was terrible news, and I knew that I had to figure out what to do next. I saw American troops leading a small group of people onto the military section of the tarmac. One of the soldiers told a group of foreigners, "This is American soil, and the Taliban will not come here." I started to run after them with crowds of others. We kept on hearing gunshots, which felt so terrifyingly close. In the next few moments, I felt like time had stopped. All I heard were the Americans saying, "Let's go." I saw a stream of people getting onto a plane, and I followed. It was all I could do at the moment. I was rushed onto the plane, which had hundreds of people on board. There was no room to sit. Everyone was standing. People were clutching each other and their children. I couldn't breathe. The American pilots were screaming that the plane could not go anywhere because there were too many people on board. One of them shouted, "Please get out, please get out." Then, soldiers came and started pulling people out from both the front and back doors. We were in the middle. It was chaotic, uncomfortable, and stressful. People were pushing, and there was no air. The entire scene was so hopeless, sad, and scary. I looked at the mothers with newborns around me, and I felt so guilty. I decided to get off so the plane could take off. But as I made my way towards the door to get off, I saw American troops circling the plane in Humvees. One of the soldiers told me to stay put because there were perceived threats. Another 20 minutes passed. Then suddenly, the Americans told those of us standing around the door to get in the plane. This was the only chance. We rushed into the plane and they closed the doors. I couldn't see out because there were no windows, but in my head, they had started fighting outside. The plane remained on standby for an hour. All these different thoughts went through my head of what could happen next. And then without warning, the plane started moving. It started flying. We took off. It was one of the happiest moments. Everyone was clapping and cheering. There was a feeling of appreciation for the American pilot who took off. There was a general sentiment in the air that we probably would have died if that plane didn't come. We were that happy, but the flight was challenging. There were many babies on board, and parents were holding them above their heads to ensure they wouldn't be stepped on. There was no food, water, or breathing room for hours. We landed in Qatar, in the American Military Air Force Airport. and we had been transferred to a military base. When we arrived, I felt several simultaneous emotions: happiness, sadness, confusion, exhaustion, and frustration. I've tried to help people who couldn't speak English to explain their situations and get medicine. I took a chance to change my life from what could be a very terrible situation. My name is Thomas, and this happened in 2018. I was 14, and my dad ended up losing custody over me, so I had to go live with my mother. She lives in South Dakota. I was happy to get to live with her, but I had to go to the airport. Before I had to leave, I packed my stuff, said goodbye to my father, and left. When I arrived at the airport, I was not ready to get on a plane. I never went on a plane, and I was kind of nervous. But anyway, when I entered the airport, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. There were two guys just standing there. They looked like they belonged in prison or something. They noticed me looking at them, so I thought, being the nice person I am, I decided I should go say hi. I go up, say hi, but then one guy says, "Hey, do you like candy? Me and my friend have candy. Come with us, and you can have it." I was 15, so I knew better not to trust strangers, but something was telling me to go with them. Worst case scenario, I get stabbed, and no one will find out, and the guys will never be found. I went with them, and they brought me to a white van. In my head, I'm like, no way, just turn around and never look back. When we made it to the van, I couldn't have been happier. I was about to fly to my hometown in Mangalore to attend my brother's wedding. I had been granted 15 days leave. At the Dubai airport, I struck up a conversation with one of my co-passengers, a friendly young fellow who was also from my hometown. Unhappy with his job, he was leaving Dubai for good. We got along quite well, so much that after boarding, he requested the person sitting next to me to exchange seats with him. The flight was like any other, children moving around, a crying baby, and so on, until 30 minutes before our arrival in Mangalore, when all of a sudden, we felt as though the plane had dropped several feet. It was just for a moment, but a scary one. Sometime later, when the announcement for landing was made, I fastened my seatbelt, happy that I would meet with my family soon. But that happiness did not last long. Just as we landed, I knew something was wrong. The plane was moving way too fast for a landing, and then, all of a sudden, it started shaking violently. The next thing I remember is hearing screams from every direction. Everything seemed out of control. My seat had turned upside down. I couldn't see anything. There was smoke everywhere. It was really hot. My eyes were burning. There was a stench. I somehow managed to get up, walk a bit, and luckily found an opening. The plane had broken. I got out and found myself in a jungle. There were a few others who managed to escape like me, but we could not save anyone. There was too much smoke. Then suddenly, there was a blast. The plane was burning really bad. 4 years later, I still can't believe it was for real. At that time, I did not even realize how badly I was burnt. My forehead, my hair, my ears, my legs, and my hands were all burnt. I am grateful to the local people who took us to the hospital. I just want to reach out to the relatives of the missing passengers of the Malaysia Airlines plane and tell them, you need to keep praying. You can't do anything else. After all, nothing is in our hands. I really hope they are alive and safe. I pray no one has to ever go through what we went through. No one deserves it. It is not easy to get over a plane crash. Planes fly over my house, reminding me daily, there's no getting away. I sometimes cannot even sleep. I can still see those children walking up and down the flight. At the end of